Hey everybody, Zee Garcia here, and today we're going to be gathering resources, loading up our ships and sending them off, and building up our region in Valparaíso. This is a resource management game, also a programming game in which you are going to be taking different actions in order to gather resources, trade those things for other things, and basically race to 18 victory points. Many different things are going to give you victory points. Building up locations on the board, shipping, gathering new cards, things like that. And ultimately, you are trying to have the most victory points possible. It's kind of a Euro-style game through and through. A lot of those things that come with that, some interesting sort of tactical things, and then a theme that is kind of not that interesting, but I'll talk about that later on, okay? So, let's go ahead and dive into it. I'll show you how the game works, give you an overview, and then we'll come on back after that. Here we're going to be taking a look at a game with 3 players. Each player begins with their ship in the harbor, 1 worker in the city, and then we've taken turns counterclockwise to place 1 more worker out there on the board somewhere. Every player begins with their own player board, on which they have 4 houses. They're going to begin with 2 more workers, only 1 more worker in a 2-player game, but in this case, 2 more. You begin with 20 pesos, and then everyone has also taken 3 starting resources, making sure they're different from anybody else's selection of 3 starting resources. You can see here the ship that is at the harbor right now, and the spaces for it to load goods, and then these 3 goods are sitting on the warehouse. So again, this is in front of each player, though I'll be showing you just one here. We've got out here 3 different sea sections in which there are 5 pesos and 3 cards sitting there, which you'll hopefully acquire by loading up your ships, sailing out there, and gathering, delivering goods and gathering these cards and the money as well. You've got a few different trading houses, 3 in this case with a reserve. On the opposite side of the board, for 4 or 5 players, there would be 4 of these trading houses. And then everyone also begins with a hand of cards. These are your starting cards, and they are going to have different actions on them. Everyone has an identical deck. So the objective of the game is to race to 18 victory points. And when that happens, the game's going to be over. Also, it might be over if we can no longer replenish these. And then at the end of the game, whoever has the most victory points is the winner after a little final scoring. So each round goes like this. Everyone has their board, and you are going to take a simultaneous turn or action which you program the cards that you would like to trigger this round. So let's go ahead and move these workers a bit just so I can show you what this board looks like somewhat, and you have an idea of how to program. There are spots underneath the board in which I am going to be placing my own cards in order to program them into that spot. There are 5. This last one here is not open until I deploy these 2 houses. Then it is open to me. And there's also the mayor's residence over here in which I may program a card into that spot, but I will pay 5 for that, 5 pesos for that. One variant that the game includes for the programming phase utilizes this sand timer included in the game, and you'll just put this in the center of the table. Everyone puts their cards down, you pick them up at the same time, and start programming, and then as soon as someone is done programming, then they are going to flip the sand timer over in the center of the table. And everyone else has the rest of that sand timer, which is approximately a minute, to finish. After that sand timer has run through, everyone else counts down from 5 to 0 at about 1 second intervals. Out loud, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then when that's done, everyone needs to have finished programming. If they didn't, let's say they were missing a card there, that's as much as they did. You have to just play with that. So that's the sand timer variant. Once I've done this and I've decided which actions I'm taking, then we are going to take turns triggering those actions starting from the start player. So let's say I've gone ahead and done that, and I'm going to reveal these cards, all right? So let's say I do, again, this would be all face down, but let's say I do that, and I'm going to do, let's see, maybe I'll do that, move myself like so, and I will do that. I might even program one in here, like so. Again, that would have 5 pesos on it, and I would do that, let's say. Again, the 5 is not available to me. Then they all get flipped over, and we start. So let's say I'm the start player. This is the first card in my program there, and I can choose to trigger that one right now. If I don't want to trigger that card for some reason, I can choose to trigger one of the other ones, but I'm going to pay some pesos for that. 1 if the card is still here, 2 pesos, or 3 pesos. Or I can always choose to trigger this one also. So freely to me right now, I can trigger that one or that one. Let's say I do trigger this card, and I do the action it entails. Once that's done, then these are going to shift down. And on my next turn, I may freely trigger that one, or again that one. And then I would just discard the 5 pesos and be done with this. And if anything needs to slide, then it would do so. Everyone will do this until the end of the round. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what these cards do. And that largely is going to give you a pretty good idea of how the game works. So 3 of these cards have to do with my ship. Let's go ahead and look at them first. This first one here lets me load my ship, and I would just take goods from my warehouse and place them onto the ship spots until I am satisfied. If I fill the ship all the way up to the 6th spot, that earns me immediately 1 victory point on the track here. There is also an alternate action at the bottom where I may choose to take something if I don't want to do the action at the top. And there are many cards that have this alternate action at the bottom. The other one here is the ability to move the ship. I can move the ship to any spot. It's 2 steps, but everything is 2 steps from everything else. So it just means move it anywhere you want to. All right? So you can do that. It doesn't matter who else is in that spot. You can move anywhere you want. Or I can take that orange cube if I so choose instead of moving the ship. This one lets me ship goods. And so if I go to a location, let's say I am here right now, I can ship the goods if I have the necessary goods in that area. So in this case, I would need 3 of the white cubes on my ship. I would get rid of them, and then I would take the money, and I would take one of these cards, put it in my pile of cards that I did not program, and it's going to give me some new abilities from here on out. I would then replace that card from the stack of cards right here. The other ones all have to do with actions with the workers on the board. So this one, for example, lets me trade at a market. So like this market right here. I would do the bottom action there. In this case, we're looking at the one that says 1, 2, or 3 times I can give up a good, and I can take a good rather, and 3 coins. So that's this action. And then once I've done that, let's say I'll do that only once because I have a single character there. I'll explain how I may do it more times. I'm going to take that. I'm going to push it here at the top of this track. And the one on the bottom is going to come to the top of this and push the rest of them down like so. Meaning the next available action will be a different one. And these will cycle through, as you can see, creating new opportunities for the player. So that's what that allows me to do. I might be able to do it more than once, like I said, if I have more people there or houses there. I'll explain those, like I said, in just 1 second. I may move. If I move a single step, that's free. Another step, I pay 1 for that one. And a third step, I pay 4 coins for that one. I can also choose to move this character if they're in Valparaíso there. This one lets me hire new people. I give up 1 of each kind of cube. I take them from my board. I put them in the city. This one lets me build a house. I would pay 10 pesos, and I have to build a house somewhere where I have a worker. In this case, I can build it there, or I could build it right here, and there's a chain of buildings that will be built starting from the lighthouse. So if I choose to build here, I'm going to pay my 10. I'm going to cover that spot. That spot says I get a victory point right now, so I would do so right now. And from now on, if I choose to trade there, I will do actions at a 1 or 2 strength power. The house itself counts as a 1 trading action. However, be aware I still need to have at least 1 actual person there. But the building lets me do a little bit more. And then I've got this one here that lets me simply sell goods for 10 pesos. And these are all the starting ones, again, but I will get more of them. Others that will let me move, for example, up to 1 or 2 steps for free. And for the third step, I only pay 3 coins. So that could be an action. This card is also worth 2 victory points. I have other actions, such as this one that let me move a worker through a river. I have others that let me sell a single cube and make more money, where instead of the basic one lets me sell a cube and make 10 pesos, this one would let me make 15. So I can choose to do that. And so on. This card, for example, simply gives me 10 pesos. That's all it does when it comes up. There is no alternate action because, well, it's giving me something already. And so that's pretty much how all the actions out here are going to go. You're going to be moving around. You're going to be trading at the different places. You're going to be building houses. You are going to be loading your ships, making goods, loading your ships, sending them out, delivering goods, getting new cards, with a few other wrinkles on top of that. So, for example, a couple of those wrinkles are, when I build these houses at Valparaíso, I am going to cover the spot. I am going to get anything if it's right on the place where I build, such as way down here, I get a victory point right away. And I am going to also be getting sort of residual payments at the end of every round. You see, at the end of every round, I'm going to get every house, it's going to get whatever is next to that house. So let's say we've got here, all of the players have already built a few of these houses out here. And so the players at the end of the round are going to get, yellow would get 3 coins, green would get 1 gray cube and 3 coins, and red would get 1 white cube. Also, whoever has the most houses at the end of the round gets 5 pesos, second place gets 2, with ties being broken as to whoever built later, and then the start player is whoever built the last house there. They get the start player token, unless they already had it, in which case, well, they pass it to the left. And that's how that works. Don't forget, you still need to have a person there in order to build, though you're going to want to deploy them and then very likely move them around. Another little wrinkle, when you are making trades at places, you are going to have to pay some money to anyone or any house that is already there. So by having, let's say, green player now make a couple of moves, show up there and do a trade themselves, they're going to have to pay me, I believe it's 2 pesos per piece I have there, in order to do an action. It doesn't matter how many times they trigger that action, they pay me 1 time. And so, as you can see, the game is all about optimizing these different chains, right? Money for cubes, cubes for money, cubes or money for victory points, things like that. And then building in different places that give you victory points right away, or make things more available to you, allow you to do more things with a single card being triggered from your board. You're also going to want to open up that 5th spot, which is beneficial because it lets you do more in the same turn. And you might want to consider, of course, putting 1 out here for those 5 pesos in order to do 1 extra thing whenever you want to without paying any extra money. The cards that come up later on in the stack here get a little bit better, and these are organized into an A deck and then a B deck. And so you might have later on things that do some more interesting and powerful things, such as doing a trade, for example, for 5 fewer pesos, such as this one. The card is also worth 3 victory points. And there's one finicky rule, which is when you acquire a card, if it's a B card, and there are any A cards left, then you're going to have to pay some money. You're going to have to place in one of these spots out here. If it has an A card or the most, again, some sort of balancing rules that are not elegant, but they're there to balance the game out. So that should give you an idea of how the whole thing works. I think it's a fairly straightforward concept. Let's go ahead and go back up top, and let me tell you what I think of the game. All right, so there it is, Valparaíso. Overall, I like this one all right. It's not a bad game. I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite Euro game ever or anything, but it's not bad. I had a couple of issues with it. The first one being the theme. It's just kind of like boring. It could be anywhere in the world, but that's not that big a deal. It bothers me a little bit, but it's not a big deal. The other thing I do think is a little iffy is the way the game scales. So I'm going to start there, okay? So theme could be anything. Put that up on the screen. And then replayability, my issue being, with only 2 players, there's a lot of control on the board. Like if I show up at one of the markets, it's likely that the one on the bottom there is the one I planned for when I programmed. I'm ready to go there, do my thing. But there's not a lot of interest on the board. There's not a lot of people getting in your way. There's not a really interesting fight at the harbor. So it's a little flat. With more people, let's say I play with 5 people, there's a lot of interactivity on the board. People getting in your way, having to pay this guy to do an action there. Oh, you're standing there, here's some money for you too. And race for things, you know, I like that. But the game state is a little too volatile for me. When I program it, I guess what I'm saying is a programming game that is in it by its very design a Euro game gets a little iffy when you're playing with 5 people. And I programmed to gather 2 cubes here and then go down there and trade those 2 cubes for money or whatever. Gather my cubes, and by the time I get down there, 4 other people have gone twice already, and that thing that was at the bottom of that market ready to be triggered is long gone. And so now I have to start changing my plan, and my turn sort of falls apart, which leads to a very unsatisfactory feeling. Yes, I know you can pay money and bump up actions to the front. You have to adapt, and that's cool. That's fine. But that feeling with many players, with 5 players, is at odds, in my opinion, to the game's core, the game's sensibilities. I also don't like the sand timer. I think that's also at odds with the sensibilities of the game. The idea of hurry up and program quickly because, I guess, A, they don't want a lot of downtime, but B, you might make a mistake in your programming. And that just doesn't seem like the kind of game this should be. There's a lot of things I do like. I like the aesthetics in the game. I think it looks good. There's a lot of good iconography. It all makes sense, okay? Game length is fine because I like the race aspect. I do like the race to 18 thing. I don't... It's different. A lot of the games are like, oh, you play 6 rounds, okay? In this one, that pressure feels more real. I mean, it's always there. You see someone gain 4 points from something, and you go, that's 1/6 of the way there, or 1/5 or whatever. It's that sort of thing. I like that idea. Ease of play is also really good, as I said. Good iconography. The timer's weird, but otherwise, I like how easy the game is to play. I like the card-driven actions. That's cool. I'm not sure about the programming part necessarily, but. And so, and then tactically and strategically speaking, it's just all a little flat because of those things. I have a fun time programming, thinking through my turn, and then a couple of those might be interesting, and the rest are very rote, are very sort of by the numbers things. And if ever there was a game which was all about taking these cubes and turning them in for slightly differently colored cubes, and then taking those cubes and turning them in for some pesos that you then spend for cubes, this is the one. So overall, I know it sounds really negative what I'm saying. I don't hate this game or anything. I would rate this like a 6 out of 10. So I enjoy it. I would certainly play it if it was suggested, but it's not one that I'm necessarily going to be bringing to the table myself, that I would be suggesting. And I do feel that a few of the things in it are sort of, again, in opposition to what appears to be, anyway, some of the core concepts and values at the heart of the game itself. So there you go. Hopefully it's one that you'll enjoy yourselves. And like I said, I would be happy to play. So there you go. That is Valparaíso. Thanks for checking this out with me, everybody. I'm Zee Garcia. I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com.